Ajde! Unutra odi. Dođi ovdje, Trixi, orja!
The Italian government has declared a state of emergency in the several regions, mobilized rescue workers and deployed the army to aid the evacuation efforts. Civil Protection Authority have urged people in the affected areas to remind cautions to need official warning to forecast in coming days. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited in affected areas and presented their solidarity with the victims and pledged government support to reconstruction efforts. This is a national emergency and we are working closely with the local authorities to ensure the safety of all residents, she said. Climate experts warn that such extreme weather events become more frequent due to climate change. Italy, with a varied geography, is particularly vulnerable in the affected changing weather patterns. The combination of heavy rainfall, property, maintained infrastructure, and urban explosion into flood-prone areas in exact button the impact of the recent storms. A severe storm hit Sicily, Italy, caused heavy rain, strong winds and widespread flooding in several cities including Palermo and Catania. The extreme weather events, which struck without warning, turned streets into rivers, disrupted transportation and left thousands of residents without electricity and with damaged property. Local authority issued several weather warnings on the island who received rainfall significantly above the seasonal average. Videos show a dramatic scene where, posted on social media, cars submerged into water, people waist deep water in the flood waters, and emergency service trying to reach stranded cities. Meteorologists report that the storm deployed rapidly over the Mediterranean Sea under the influence of low pressure system combined into high sea surface temperature, and a phenomenon that is becoming increasingly common due to climate change. Sicily has always faced extreme weather conditions, say climatologist Lucia DeSantis, but the scale of intensity of this phenomenon is unprecedented. The sea surface temperature is at 3 Celsius above average and they contributed to strongest storm. The Italian Red Cross has launched a campaign to collect food, clothing and foods. Donations are accepted online in location collection center. Despite the destruction have also been stories by heroism. In Palermo, a police officer warning through the flood waters a rescue an elderly couple trapped in the flooded car. We couldn't leave them there. The water was rising fast, he said. As cleanup beginning to Sicily starts to recover, officials warn the crisis far from over. Weather warning reminding police and another storm front cooled in southern Italy by the weekend. This is not the first time Sicily was faced with the wrath of nature, but experts are calling this storm one of the most destructive weather events in decades. The last such disaster occurred in 2029, where deadly floods and landslides killed 37 people in Messina, but this time the combination of heavy rainfall, wind and widespread infrastructure damage made the consequences even more serious. According to preliminary government report, more than 1,200 homes were damaged, 14 roads remain closed and 7 bridges have been structure damage. Insurance companies are already inundated with the calms of many families without insurance to continue on compensation from the state. This storm was particularly dangerous because it suddens. Meteorologists issue a yellow alert just hours before the first downpour. By that time, it was too late many communities to prepare. Critics are now to call into fast weather warning system to better preparedness of natural disaster, especially in the southern region, which is often overlooking. Satellite images show in a green picture. Local authority urged residents to stay at home and avoid travel to roads and rail, more driving conditions dangerous. Emergency services were also called to help with the deal in the aftermath of the storm, including clearing roads in areas of these affected. The hail comes as Italy, like much of Europe, experienced unseasonably cold weather. Forecasts predict that the extreme weather could continue for several days, with some storms of heavy rain expected across the country. Although Rome is no stranger to extreme weather events, the sudden intensity and hailstorm cut off guard. As residents begin the process to cleaning up and repairing the damage caused by the storm, they will adapt it by keeping their close eye on weather forecast in the coming days. The Italian capital Rome has been stunned after a sudden and violent hailstorm swept through the city, pelting streets, monuments, and neighborhoods with the eyes at the sky of Gulf's ball. The storm struck with little warning, turning summer strikes into a dramatic clash of thunder and lightning before unleashing torrents. The rain mixed with hail. When the minutes rolled, turned it wild, resembling winter snow rather than a September evening. I felt like the sky was exploding, said Marco Bianchi, a taxi driver whose car window was shattering. I lived here all life and never seen Rome like this. Dozens of people were threatened to injure, many from fly glass and fallen debris. Hospital reported cases to shock and debris and brushes, where several children were taken with a head injury caused by the hailstorm. Emergency service received across the city responded to collapsing shops, canopies, damaged vehicles, and flooded underpasses. Tourists were cut off guard in a historic era, with doors around the shelter inside the Colosseum and St. Peter Basilica and hailstorm battered courtyard and pieces. Social media quickly filmed with the several images of the Trevi fountain surrounded by the sky, with the local describe it into steam from another world. Transport was now into disarray. Rome's metro facing delay after water seeped into tunnels, with the traffic jams scattered into kilometers and the driver abandoned damaged car. Agriculture outside the city was also hit. The vineyard in Lazio suffered severe damage and the entire cruise destroyed just a week before harvest, raising fears of million losers to the local farmers. Meteorologists explained that the storm was fueling the unusually warm Mediterranean air classes the colder north front, creating the perfect conditions to the hail formations. Experts warning that climate change is making such extreme events more frequent even in the region accustomed to them. Rome was hit by unexpected and several hailstorms that covered historic capital with a layer of ice, creating several scenes to resemble weather rather in early autumn. The sudden storm swept through the city on Tuesday afternoon, disrupted traffic, flooding subway station and forcing prediction to seek shelter. Local authority reported that hailstones, some the size of a golf ball, fell in nearly 20 minutes, covering squares, roads and even areas around the Coliseum. Emergency crew were disrupted to clear broken drains after torrential rain mixing with the ice caused flash flooding in several low-lying areas. Public transport was severely affected, with the several metro lines temporarily suspended due to water ingress. Drivers described it terrified moments where the visibility dropped to almost zero. It was like the sky was falling and the hail bending to so loudly, and the roof in the car was where could hit each other, said the city resident Marco Rossi. Businesses in the city center rushed to protect their shop windows, while cafes and restaurants along the Via del Corso lost their outdoor sitting areas, which were destroyed with the hail. Social media quickly filled with the images of Rome cobbled streets turned into rivers and ice caused astonishment around the world. Meteorologists explained that the storm was caused of the sudden collision toward Mediterranean air with a cold front and swept through the central Italy, an increasingly common pattern associated with the climate instability. Experts warned that such intense hailstorms are becoming more frequent in southern Europe. Despite the chaos, no serious injuries were reported, although dozens of people were treated in hospital to minor cuts and businesses. The mayor of Rome urged residents to remain cautious, emphasizing the city's vulnerability to extreme weather events. For many Romans, the storm was stark reminder for the power of nature and the need to better preparedness in the era-changing climate realities. Rome was hit by a sudden and violent hailstorm, which turned in the historic streets and Italian capital into the city rivers and caused significant disruption to normal life in the city. The storm, which hit late in the evening, blanketed the city with a hailstorm the size of walnuts, breaking windows, damaged cars, and injured dozens of residents and tourists. Within minutes, cobbled streets and famous squares were covered with a white blanket, created stains, more reminiscent of winter and autumn. Severe quickly overlapped caused flash flood that swept through the central area, including Trastevere and Prati. Cars were stuck in icy water, and buses and trams stopped while emergency service dealt with debris. Rome Florence Airport reported delays after runway were temporarily covered in hail and lightning forces ground staff and suspended operations. Train service ended from Termini station was also severely disrupted, leaving hundreds of passengers stranded overnight. Hospitals treated dozens of people and injured from the fallen branches, slapping on the sky streets and broken glass. It was terrible, said Lucia Bianchi, a local resident. The hailstones were so long and sounded like bullets hitting the window. Video posted online showed streams of hail falling down the Spanish states and a fountain overflowing throughout the city. The storms also left a mark on agriculture, vineyard and olive groves around the Lazio, suffered significant damage, with the farmers reported crops losing just weeks before harvest. For us, it is a disaster, said Marco Rossi, a farmer near Frascati. Months of work were destroyed in half an hour. Meteorologists said the storm was caused a collision between most Mediterranean air and a cold front moving south, conditions increasingly associated with the climate instability. Experts warning that the Rome, like many southern Europe cities, is becoming increasingly vulnerable to sudden extreme weather events. The Italian island of Sicily is battering catastrophic flooded under unprecedented rain, turned entire town into disaster zone. Meteorologists have described this storm as a once-of-the-century event, and official warning the full extent of the damage is not yet known. The streets of Palermo turned into rivers, cars were swept away by a building, and underground garages were flooded in a matter of minutes. In Catania, residents were forced in a wet chest deep through the metro in the city center, and hospital reported serious damage to emergency rooms. Messina, Sorrento, and rural mountain community were cut off by landslides. In less than a day, more than 250 millimeters of rain fell, almost as much in 4 months. Italy's Civil Protection Agency issued a red alert, urged residents to stay indoors. Helicopters and rescue boats worked around the clock to evacuate families trapped in the upper floor. At least 10 people were killed and more than injured and missing. I thought that it was the end, said Salvador Vital, a 64-year-old farmer who lost the livestock while floods inundated his field. Hospitals reported an increase in administration, while several schools closed after the roofs suffered structure damage. Rooms over the overbundled infrastructure succumbed to onslaught. Metro Line A was temporarily suspended due to flooding, and thousands of homes were left without power. Insurers grabbed estimated the damage could reach tens of millions of euros, which vehicles a safe ground of outdoors have been the most affected. Farmers in Lazio also suffered losses of vegetables field and vineyard were hit by the pond. Agriculture Association described the event of the catastrophic blow and the higher the harvest season. Meteorologists linking the storm and wind of the most air and collided with the cold front conditions intensified by the expectation warm weather of the Mediterranean. This is a classic case of extreme weather amplified by climate change. Rome was left stranded after extraordinary hailstorm turned in the Athol city into the local described the sudden winter in September. Streets across the capital, including area near the Colosseum and Piazza Venezia, were blanketed a thick layer of ice, disrupting traffic and caused widespread astonishment. The violent storm struck with a little warning, planted the city with a hailstorm the size of a walnut. Within minutes, the rain were overwhelmed, leaving the flash flood in low-lying districts. Motorists were forced to abandon cars, and ice storms swept through the several avenues, while public buses struggled to navigate blocked roads. Emergency service reported dozens of calls to assistance. Firefighters were deployed to clear fallen branches, and rescue drivers trapped flooded in underpasses. No fatalities were confirmed, but several minor injuries occurred as people slipped on the ice-coated pavement. One resident told local media, "I lived in Rome 40 years. I never seen hail like this. I felt that the city had been dropped into another season." Meteorologists explained that the year was triggered by a clash of warm Mediterranean air with a powerful cold front from the northern Europe, creating ideal conditions for the hail formations. Hospitals reported on a sharp increase in importance of the bureaus and the minor factories. Businesses, especially cafes and open-air markets, suffered significant losses of the sudden flood destroyed supplies to outdoor sitting areas. Farmers to the outskirts and the city also serious losses, and a vineyard and olive groves were destroyed by the storm. Video quickly spread on social media showed hailstorm bouncing off incident capable of the flooding landmarks such as the Colosseum, shocking viewers around the world. Tourists caught on the storm described described the experiences as apocalyptic. Climate experts warned that such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent in Italy, pointing out the former warmer seas contributed the strong storm. As a cleanup efforts continue, Rome is telling the financial damage and reflection to the capital vulnerability to sudden climate shock. Rome was struck by unexpected violent hailstorm, transforming incident streets into rivers of ice. Within the minutes, the Italian capital, known for its warm autumn nights, was pelted by hailstorms the size of walnuts, created on unusual winter scenes of mid-October. According to meteorologists, the phenomenon resulted from the violent collisions between most Mediterranean air and a sudden cold front from northern Europe. These collisions swept the massive cumulonimbus clouds, bringing torrential rain and intense hail accompanied by gusts reaching 19 km per hour. It felt like being inside an ice-filmed washing machine, said the residents near Piazza Venezia. Emergency services were overwhelmed by hundreds of calls. Firefighters rescued drivers trapped in the flooded cars, and subway station closed due to flooding. Major throughout the lack of cars and streets along the Tiber River become impossible. Rome is not structurally equipped to handle with the kids of weather, noted Luca Bianchi of the City of Civil Protection Department. Our system simply cannot cope with the sudden extreme rainfall. Hospital territory doesn't endure after slippery on frozen sidewalks. Rome, Italy. Rome was thrown into chaos as a sudden violent hailstorm struck at the city, transforming its cobblestone streets into rivers of ice and leaving a scene of destruction and astonishment. The storm arrived without warning late in the afternoon, bringing hailstones the size of large coins, thunder, lightning, and torrential rain. Meteorologists from Italy's National Meteorological Agency described the phenomenon as one of the most intense collective storms to hit the Lazio region in recent years. Senior meteorologist Dr. Elena Moretti stated, "The combination of extreme heat and the sudden cold front triggered explosive atmospheric instability. Within the minutes, the sky darkened, and the hail pounded the city with a different force. Vehicles were damaged, white shields shattered, and roofs became impossible under a layer of ice. Fire departments received over 1,400 emergency calls, responded to rescue trapped drivers and pump out water from subway station and underground parking garage. Rome Civil Protection Agency urged residents to stay indoors and flash flood hits at the San Giovanni Trastevere. Italy. A sudden massive hailstorm has caused extensive damage across Italy, paralyzing major cities and devastated vast agriculture areas. This extreme weather struck late Monday night, battered region from Lombardy to Tuscany, with the hailstones the size of a golf ball and the wind exceeded 100 km per hour. It left a trail of destruction, flooding, and chaos. Residents in Milan, Bologna, and Parma reported scenes of panic in the dark storm cloud or lighting in an eerily sunlight within minutes. It was followed a different onslaught, hail smashed roofs, shattered car windows, and tearing streets and the frozen rivers. It sounded like an explosion, said Franza Bianchi, a shop owner in the Milan. The hailstorm hit so hard they bent to mental separate inward. The fire department across northern Italy received over 2,000 emergency calls, reported to trapped drivers and clearing roads buried under the layer of ice. Power lines shattered, trees and uprooted an entire region, plunged into darkness overnight. Train services were halted in multiple areas, while the Milan Malnesa Airport and Bologna Guglielmo Marconi Airport experienced a delay in cancellation due to heavy hail estimated on runways.
Le macchine se ne sono andate, sono volate.
Madre di Dio. Su, che Trastevere. Mira.
Several roads were closed and flash floods combined with a thick layer of hail turned into highway into slippery, impossible surface. The damage to agriculture is catastrophic. Vineyard in Veneto and orange in Madeira have suffered total losers, with the farmers estimated damage at over 200 million euros. Years to work destroyed in 20 minutes, said winemaker Matteo Galli. We have never seen such large hailstones. They punched holes in a metal roof. Meteorologists from Italy's National Meteorological Agency explained that the intense collision of most Mediterranean air and cold northern winds created a supercell, a rotten thunderstorm capable of producing giant hailstorm and a sudden gust of winds. The temperature dropped by more than 10 Celsius in less than an hour, shocking residents who were enjoying a midsummer events. Hospitals in several provinces treated dozens of people, took cuts of berries from the broken glass and ice. Fortunately, no deaths were reported, although local officials warning to such extreme weather events are becoming more common. Italy is becoming increasingly vulnerable to violent weather, say climatologist Dr. Lucia Romano. Rising sea temperatures in the Mediterranean are contributing to stronger and faster developing storms. At dawn, residents took to streets and found their streets covered in ice, cars damaged, windows broken and crews destroyed. For many Italians, it was a stark reminder of the growing instability of nature and warning for the storm to come. A sudden violent hailstorm struck Rome, Italy, covering part of the capital in ice and causing severe disruption to daily life. The storm, which erupted late in the afternoon, estimated both residents and tourists with the intensity transformed their eternal city into the unreal winter scene in the middle of autumn. According to Italy's Severe Protection Agency, hailstones the size of walnuts fell continuously for about 20 minutes, damaged vehicles, shattered windows and retreating through outdoor restoring a void. Emergency service prevented hundreds of rescue requests, particularly in central and northern districts like Perilli, Prati and Flaminio, where roads flooded instantly. The traffic came to complete standstill. Video posted online showed vehicles plummeting through the thick layer of hail and pedestrians seek shelters on the sidewalks and subway station away. Local residents Gianni Ganti, caught in the storm on her way home, said it was like a blizzard. I could believe this was Rome. An unexpected violent hailstorm that struck Rome, Italy, transformed the city's historic streets into rivers of ice and a widespread of chaos. The storm, which erupted southerly on a Monday evening, brought golf ball-sized hailstones along the fierce gusts of torrential rain for about 13 minutes. Communities and tourists were completely caught off guard. Social media flooded with the shocking videos captured hailstones wildly pelting cars, roofs, and incidents. Cobblestones created scenes more reminiscent of winter blizzard of that October night in the Mediterranean capital. The city center, Corso and Piazza Venezia were temporarily blackened in white, with several vehicles seen standing black in thick layer of ice. Emergency service were stretched to the limit, responded to over 500 calls in just 2 hours. There were several minor incidents due to flooded underpasses, road closures and slippery surface, confirmed Marco De Santi, spokesman for the Rome Fire Department. Dozens of fallen trees were reported and power outage occurring in parts of Ostia and Monterdave district. Authority urged residents to avoid unnecessary travel. This was one of the strongest storms in Rome has experienced in recent years, said Maria Roberta Giglietti, who covered in the emergency task force overnight, where coordinated cleanup operation and assessment structure damage throughout the city. Meteorologists at the Italian Air Force Meteorological Center attributed the storm to a sudden collisions of the most Mediterranean air and the cold front from the northern Europe, which formed powerful thundercloud over central Italy. The conditions were ideal for the formation of supercell, planet senior meteorologist Dr. Elisa Monti. Such storm can develop with a few hours and cause heavy rain in a very short period of time. Several days, including Austria and EU, received more than 18 millimeters of rain in an hour, a much worse than a rainfall in the Sydney evening. The deluge caused a temporary power outage in some parts of the city and disrupted train service to the Lazio region. A dramatic video appeared on the social media showing lightning strikes at the Coliseum, water following down the Venus steps in the residents formation human chain to help each other across the flooding. Violent storm struck Rome late Monday, transforming the Italy capital into a center of chaos rarely widespread in the recent years. When the midnight sky turned pitch black and the torrential rain, a gale force wind swept across the city, uprooted trees, flooded major roads, and caused widespread blackout. According to the Italian Civil Protection Department, the storm formed over the Mediterranean Sea before slamming into the Lazio with unprecedented intensity. It was like a midday, said local resident Francesca Bianchi, described how lightning illuminated the street's landmark from the Coliseum to St. Paletta Basilica, and thunder echoed across the hills. Public transport was heavily disrupted. Metro Lane A was partially closed due to flooded tunnels, while firefighters responded to more than 300 emergency calls for trapped motorists and fallen debris. Rome history, where the also turned into Russian river submerged cars on the window. On Wednesday afternoon, a sudden and violent hailstorm hit Rome, forced residents and tourists to seek shelters, and a peace pelted the city. The streets were quickly covered with a thick layer of hail, tuning iconic locations such as Pisa, Navona, Via del Corso, and Trastevere into frozen pools. Witnesses described the storm as absolutely terrifying. Gianni Rossi, a local taxi driver, said, "I lived in Rome all my life, but I have never seen anything like this. Cars were damaged and a hailstorm bouncing on the roof like bullets." Emergency service reported more than 400 calls, including people trapped in the cars, flooded names, and the fallen trees blocked major road. While the Foucault warmed around the clock to clear the streets and help residents, several metro stations, including Repubblica and Barbani, were temporarily closed due to water entered the tunnel, leaving passengers standing. Authorities confirmed minor injuries from the hail strikes and slippery sidewalk. Meteorologists explained that the storm was a result of rapid interaction between the most Mediterranean air and a cold northern front, creating extremely unstable conditions. The classic connective supercell storm, short-lived but extremely intense. A sudden and intense hailstorm swept across Sicily on a Tuesday afternoon, leaving streets submerged, vehicles damaged, and residents scrambling for the shelter. Meteorologists reported that the storm was followed by the warm Mediterranean air cooling with a cold front from the north, causing heavy rainfall, hailstorms up to gulf both sides, and strong winds had battered to the island. Palermo, Catania and Messina were among the hardest hit cities. Streets quickly flooded and traffic came to standstill, and a heat shattered car windows and dented rooftops. "I've never seen hail like this in my life," said Giuliano Marino, in a local shop owner in Palermo. "The noise was different, and water was rising within minutes." The protest zone, Sicily Civil Protection Authority received hundreds of emergency calls for stranded motorists, fallen trees and damaged priorities. Several small rivers in province overflowed, forced temporary evacuation in low-lying neighborhoods. Minor injuries were trapped from slip and a hail impact. Agriculture area also suffered significant losses. Authority estimated damage running into millions of euros. Meteorologists attribute the storm in a clash in a humid Mediterranean air with a cold front northern front, creating a supercell system capable of relaxing extreme energy over the short period. Social media exploded with the dramatic footage of hail bouncing the historic Prague's streets, resembling the ice rivers, and residents walking through the water to reach safety. Authority urged citizens to remain indoors, and an emergency crew working throughout the night to clear roads to restore electricity. By evening, Sicily town most cursed the storm approached trees, flooded streets and damaged homes. Several stark remind of nature's unpredictable power. Residents' capacity returned to assess the destruction, capturing haunting image of Mediterranean island under assault from the elements. Power outage were reported in Ostia, said Giovanni, and a motor rail by fallen branches and lightly struck damaged power lines. Meteorologists from Arpa, Lazio, confirmed from the event was caused by explosion mixture from warm Mediterranean air colliding with a cold northern front. Such extreme hailstorms were previously rare in central Italy, said Dr. Gianni Bellini, a climatologist. But we are seeing a clear increase in the frequency and intensity, a direct signal of climate warning. The hailstorms did not spar the city landmark. Hail accumulated near the Colosseum, tuning the incident's amplifier with the surreal white ring with the tourist soul shelters under the 8. St. Peter's Square glistened with the ice, and drainage system could not cope with the flood, inundating parts and vacation. Venice, the city of water, was forced yet another violent test of survival. The powerful storm system swept across northern Italy this week, striking Venice with a torrential rain, hurricane-force winds and dramatic flooding that would reinforce over the city's long-term future. Overnight, thunder echoed across the lagoon with wind gusts tapping 110 km/h, battering the ancient city. The down water level had stretched to 115 centimeters, high enough to submerge much of St. Mark Square and spill into historic buildings. It was a chaos, said resident Marco de Alisa. The wind was howling and the water was everywhere. We couldn't ever open our door. Authority activated the most flood barrier system, the multi-billion-euro defense designed to protect Venice from high tides. But even this was engineering marvel struggling to contain the ferocity of the storm. Engineers confirmed that several gates shattered minor malfunction, allowing water to seep into vulnerable zone. Local businesses are counting heavy losers. Coffee, art, jewelry, galleries, and luxury hotels along the Grand Canal were flooded by the hour. A powerful storm tore through Rome, Italy late Tuesday evening, drenched the capital in torrential rain and battered with a violent wind and hail. The tempest, which lasted less than an hour, caused severe flooding, damaged historic landmarks, and left thousands without power. In just 14 minutes, parts of the city recorded over 17 millimeters of rainfall, overwhelmed drainage system, and transformed ancient streets into rivers. Cars were left standing near the Coliseum and Piazza Venezia, while torrents of water surged through the Trastevere and Party district. It felt apocalyptic, said Marco De Angelis, the shop owner in the city center. I saw lanterns strike in the Tiber River and the sky turned and the electric white. The noise was differing. Authority reported hundreds of emergency calls across the metropolitan area. Firefighters walked through the night, rescuing motorists, cleaned up fallen trees, and pumped water from the underground garages. Public transport was heavily disrupted. Several metro lines suspended severe after tunnels flooded. Meteorologists blamed the event and the sudden Mediterranean cyclone intensified by unusually warm temperatures. This is not a typical storm, explained the Dr. Lucia Romano, a climatologist at Rome tour Vertale University, where witnessed more the aggressive atmospheric system linking the warm climate. What was happening once decade now happens yearly. Videos showed online showed hail of the size of a coin pelting the Spanish steps and lightning bolts illuminated the dome of St. Peter Basilica. Emergency scenes echoed across the city. The storm cell moved through, leaving a trail of debris in its wake. Palermo, Italy. A powerful storm swept through the Sicilian capital overnight, unleashed torrential rain, violent winds, and lifting parts and plunged parts of the city into chaos. The downpour, which began late Sunday, lasted several hours of flooded major roads, homes, and businesses across Palermo and nearly town. According to the Italy Severe Protection Agency, over 19 millimeters of rain fell in 2 hours, one of the hardest rainfall recorded in recent years. The city and the drainage system was quickly overwhelmed, tuning main arteries with the Valley region, Sicily, and the fast-flowing rivers. Cars were seen drifting through the streets and emergency crews raising their rescue standing drivers. It was like a water flow pouring from the sky, said resident Giovanni Bianchi. Those ground flood apartment was submerged. I lived these 40 years and never seen a rain like this. Authority reported dozens of emergency interests from the clearing fallen trees and rescue elderly residents trapped flooded buildings. Several neighboring, including Sierra Moncetta and Partinico, suffered blackouts after lightning strikes damaged power lines. Events like this are increasingly frequent and intense due to climate change, warning the Dr. Lucia Romano, climatologist of the University of Rome. Historic sites were not spared. Pisa, Navona, and Campo de Fiori was underwater. Fire protective measures were quickly deployed of the Coliseum and Roman Forum to prevent damage to existing structure. Nearby tourists sought shelters under the coffee means of the lighting up to stormy sky. Power outage affected thousands of homes, and local authority urged residents to avoid unnecessary travel. Schools in the most affected districts were closed for the remainder of the day. Insurance companies have already begun assistance to extensive property damage, with a preliminary estimate to reach millions of euros. Rome Major Roberto Gualtieri praised the rapid response of emergency crews and emphasizing civil vulnerability and increasingly extreme weather. "We must strengthen our infrastructure and preparedness," he said, as the storm subsided. Local emergency to assess the damage swept debris for the streets and helped stranded vehicles. Despite the chaos, Romans remain resilient. Rome has seen centuries of storm, said Mourning County. A residents, when during were rebuilt and life goes on.